Roar Nation, Promise Keepers is back. July 31st, 2020. Estimated 80,000 men will be gathering at the AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. Speakers are going to rock the house. It's going to be a full lineup, and on top of that, worship is going to be amazing. Why am I telling you so far in advance? Because tickets are on sale and they're slowly selling out. So, that being said, I hope I see you there. I am planning on going. Go to promisekeepers.org to get info and tickets. Again, go to promisekeepers.org. See you there.
Welcome to Are You Real? Finding the Authentic You, the podcast that focuses on Christians that are active in everyday life. Join in as we speak to everyone from successful business owners to educators to athletes about their faith and how it helps them reach out and revolutionize those around them to do the same. And now get ready to roar with your host, the voice of manifestation, Jon Fuller.
Hey, Roar Nation. I am excited for you guys this week to hear a show that I was recently on called Breakaway Wealth with Jim Oliver. He was on our show a couple weeks ago, and we're going to be talking about overcoming failure, what business looks like to be in it for ourselves, obviously failure and success within business, what that looks like to be a Christian. And then also we're going to be talking about what it looks like when we align our lives with God. So we talk a little bit about the book that I'll be releasing on March 30th. And how, when we connect with God and speak the things that He's saying, how that accelerates our family life and business and receive that blessing for our lives. So hope you guys enjoy this week's show and look forward to getting feedback. Thank you.
Welcome back. This is Jim Oliver, and today with me I have Jon Fuller. And Jon has his own podcast, which I'm going to have him tell you a little bit about, and he's an entrepreneur. Jon, welcome.
Yeah, man. I'm excited to be here, dude. I'm always excited to blab.
Yeah. And I was on Jon's podcast, and it was great. I love your podcast. I want you to tell the audience about it. But first, tell us a little bit about you and your family and what you're all about.
Yeah, man. I am going into my 40s. I have 3 kids. I say going into my 40s. I am 40, so I'm lying already. Gosh. I have 3 kids. I got a 19, 17, and 15-year-old. I've been married for 21 years. I've been with my wife for 22. Also, the hardest and best thing that's ever happened to me at the same time is marriage. We have been in business for ourselves for 20 years since we got married. And, man, that's about it. Done a lot of different things. Done a lot of real estate, construction, distribution company. My wife has a fitness business. We have kind of dabbled in a little bit of everything, learned a lot, failed a lot, and got a couple successes.
So what stands out to me there, Jon, is you guys met in high school, right? It sounds like.
Yeah, kind of. So, actually we met in college. It would have been my wife's freshman year. So she was just out. She was, we actually got married when she was 18 or 19. I think it was 18 or 19. It's been a while, but, I was a sophomore in college. She was a freshman. And, honestly, man, she was so hot then. I was like, dude, I don't even have a chance. Cause all the older upperclassmen in the dorm were trying to hit on her. And I was just, just guy that's sophomore. And I thought, man, I don't stand a chance. And she didn't like any of us, actually. She thought we were all annoying football players. And actually, she said, funny story, she said she really didn't like me when she first met me. And I literally pursued her for, oh my gosh, months. And every time she would set a date with me, she would stand me up. And this went on for like 3 months. So finally, I was like, here's the deal. Whatever you're doing. So she's like, well, I'm going to go do laundry today. I was like, great, I'll go do laundry with you. And so I went and did laundry, or she'd say, I'm going to go do jazzercise or something like that. I can't remember what I did. I signed up for a class that was terrible. But anyways, I just pursued her, and that's how I actually ended up, I won her heart over.
Well, you know, what's funny is that's how you get things in life, right? Decide what's the ultimate success formula. The first thing you do is decide what you want. You decided you wanted her, right?
Yeah.
And then you take massive action. And then the things that don't work, you change them. You know,
Yes.
it's not. And so what you did is, well, I'm asking her out. That's not working. Okay, well, I guess I'm going to do jazzercise and I'm going to do laundry and I'm going to do whatever it takes, right?
That's right, man. You just set your mind to it and go for it.
That's right. It's, you know, there's a formula to success, and success leaves clues. So you've been in business for 20 years. So, you know, where did that entrepreneurial spirit come from? Is it from your family or from her family or?
Yeah, it'd definitely be from my dad has had several different companies. And then also my grandma, I come from a family of very hard workers. Everybody works really hard. So does my wife's family as well. But that was one thing that my dad always instilled in me was hard work. His granddad did that for him. And my grandma owns a very successful bar and stuff over in Scottsdale, Arizona. I'm actually the only one in the family that doesn't have anything to do with it, but my dad has had multiple businesses. So it was just always kind of instilled in me. But actually, my first business was probably in 5th grade, somewhere in there. Yeah. And I wanted to make money. So I went house to house washing cars. And I would just ask the neighbors, hey, can I wash your car for $3? And I would talk to them and I would wash it right there on the spot. I brought a bucket, 2 sponges, and some soap, and I would wash their cars. Well, then I hired a friend of mine and I said, hey, do you want to do it with me? And I'll never forget, he got mad because I said, I'll give you $1. I'll keep $2. You get $1. And he felt like that wasn't fair. And I remember even thinking then, I was like, how's that not fair? Like, this is my thing. I'm doing the talking. I'm talking to people, my idea. And I worked hard. It wasn't like he did all the work. And, but anyways, I paid him $1, made $2, but that's how I made money, was going around and I'd wash people's cars. That was my first business. And then, even younger than that, I sold wire bracelets in elementary school. And then, this side note. So since then, just be clear, I've gotten saved. I've gotten rid of my evil ways. And I say that with some laughter, but, even through 7th, 8th, 9th grade, when I went through some really hard years, I dealt drugs. So, wow. I mean, it's one of those things that, like, I always laugh. I say, man, if you can convert a drug dealer, he's got an entrepreneurial spirit. He's just using a God-given gift in a very unworthy or unrighteous way. Yeah. And I say that, maybe that's for some guests or not. I always laugh about it, but I mean, if it's in you, it's in you, and it's going to come out one way or another. But I've always just kind of had a side hustle for, like, man, if you're going to get ahead, then you're going to have to make money.
So, you know, what's really cool about what you just said, when my son Tanner, I think he was 14 or 15, and we were living in Colorado, and we had this golf club that we belonged to. And Tanner and I had this idea that everybody comes and plays golf on Saturday and Sunday mornings. And Tanner would wash their car while they were playing golf, and the club would bill them. You know, that makes it really easy, right? The club would get 20%. So, back to your ratio for your guy, they were getting 20%. And Tanner would wash their car, and he was making a killing, because we were charging $30, by the way, to wash your car. Yeah. Hand washed. This is about 15 years ago. And it worked out really well. And until Tanner said, well, wait a minute, I'm going to get my buddies. I'll just do the selling, and I'll get my buddies to clean the cars. Well, they weren't as good at cleaning the cars. Yep. And so there was some, he learned very early on that, employees can be a downfall. So
it's stressful.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's funny that you got started doing that, because I had these visions of, I can take all these athletes that don't have much time to work, especially during the week, right? And they could work on a Saturday and Sunday morning for 4 hours or so, and they could make a ton of money. People would line their cars up, and every week they would get it done. We could place these athletes, and maybe something like through FCA or something, get these kids out there doing doing this. But, I just didn't have time to really grow it the way that it could have been a real service. But
we all got lots of ideas, more ideas than we got time.
That's right. So, having that confidence to be in business for yourself, obviously it was instilled in you very early on. And, that's really a gift, because a lot of people, so many people that I talk to and that are great entrepreneurs now, they had to be kind of that wage earner first. Like, they needed that safety, and their parents were telling them, go to school, get a job, that you want a job, you want security, you want safety. And then they have a really hard time breaking out of that to get away from the herd. You kind of had that gift from your family and just your God-given talents from really early on. So tell us, you said something really key is, I failed, I believe people fail their way to the top, right? Oh, yeah. If you don't fail, then you're never going to be stretched or anything else. But, did you ever have that fear of failure or fear of success that hurts so many people?
Oh yeah, for sure. So when, so I told you I met my wife my sophomore year, and I was playing football. She was she was runner up at Miss New Mexico. She was about to go the following year to be Miss New Mexico. Long story short, we ended up getting married between my sophomore and junior year in college.
Yep.
And I drop out of school because her pageant mom knew of a business that was going up for sale. It was a health food store at the time. I sold supplements out of my dorm to make side money. And when I say supplements, I was selling EAS was big then, creatine, protein, stuff like that. They were still not regulated within college, so athletes could take all that stuff. And I was selling that stuff to make side money. And this store went up for sale, and it was failing, and the lady wanted out of it. And another part of the story is I had went in a couple weeks before to the bank to get my first job working for the bank. And I filled in my application. Everything went really well. What was funny is that a month or a couple weeks later, I go back into the bank asking for a loan. So no longer was I asking for a job. I was asking for a loan. I was broke, had no money, no experience. And I'm asking the VP of the bank for a $20,000 loan to buy this business. And there was about $20,000-ish of inventory. And obviously he wanted collateral. So I worked a deal with my dad. I bought a Jeep from my dad to make payments, but he loaned me the title, used the title as the down payment on this business, bought this business. Now, the lady did not have time to help me, so I worked for free for 2 weeks inside of this business to kind of understand the ropes. I would get one employee with it that knew everything, and literally jumped in 2 feet first to a business that we had a lunch counter, supplement counter. It was basically like a GNC and then like a Subway / shop on the other side. It was a dual business. And you talk about hard knocks. So to answer your question, I'm telling you all that to say I had no idea what I was doing. I jumped in, and literally it was a roller coaster ride, just trying to figure out what the heck does cash flow look like, and dealing with employees, and really dealing with customer service and people. And it was a fire, dude. And we did that for 8 years.
Wow. So but that's what you have to do, right? There's a book by Richard Bach called Illusions.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of it?
I haven't. I'm writing it down right now.
I'm older than you. So when I was a kid, they made us read Jonathan Livingston Seagull, right? A seagull that wanted more than just than seagulls have, right? And so Richard Bach writes this book called Illusions, and in the very beginning, there's a story, and it's a handwritten story. I think it's kind of cool the way he does this in some of his books. So the story is about this creature that lives in this crystal stream, and they cling to the rocks and the roots in the stream, and the stream brings them everything, right? Everything that they need to eat and to survive. And this little creature says, I'm going to let go. I wonder what would happen if I let go and just see where this stream takes me. And so he the other creatures laugh at him and ridicule him and say, if you let go, this stream that you worship is going to pound you against the rocks and batter you and in the current, and surely you're going to die. And he says, if I stay here clinging, I'm going to die of boredom. So he lets go. And sure enough, he's caught up in the rapids and he's bounced against the rocks and everything else. But eventually the stream lifts him up and he's flying down the stream. And a little ways down the stream, there's another village of these creatures, and they yell out to him, Messiah, come to save us. A creature like us, yet he flies. And he obviously says, I won't ruin the rest of the story for you, but he says, I'm not a Messiah, right? And so I think that's what happens is when people haven't, broken away from the herd, and they see people that have, they see them in awe, and they don't realize they didn't get to see the beating and the battering that they took in the very beginning, and it's just kind of a cool story about breaking away.
I want to say something to that. And I think so many times people don't realize there is war stories behind every good success.
There is.
And I think what people need to realize is you're going to fail, and you need to be okay with failure, because all of us have, but failures don't define you.
That's right.
And I think that's really important for people to grasp that, like, it is okay to fall flat on your face. It's not okay to stay there laying in the dirt crying about it. Suck it up, get up and move forward and learn something, because, so many times when you tell those stories, and I think about, I'm very open about my faith and stuff like that. And I think what people don't realize is if you look through the Bible, some of the people that are renowned that people look up to, if you've been in church a while, so you got like Abraham, Moses, David, any of the disciples, which crack me up. If you really look at, you got tax collectors, thieves, businessmen. When you look at all of their stories, every single, and they're all renowned today, right? In Hebrews, it talks about they're a cloud of witnesses. Okay.
Yeah.
If you look at their stories, they were massive failures. David is one of the most renowned in multiple religions. People look up to King David as Old Testament. Man, he was an adulterer, a murderer, and really screwed up, but he had a heart that says he went after God and he loved the Lord and repented, obviously, and changed his ways. But look at, those are massive failures. And had he stayed in that failure, he wouldn't be the person that we know of him today. And I say that to the whoever's listening today, that, like, just go for your dream, realize you're going to fall flat on your face, learn from it, and then just keep moving forward.
Absolutely. You just touched on a couple of things that I love. Is I think about Moses, and, when God came to Moses, Moses is like, look, I'm not well spoken. By the way, I'm paraphrasing. I am horrible at. Oh,
I paraphrase all of it. Even when I speak in church, man, it's hilarious. I'm like, this is Jon Fullers' version, so please excuse me.
Yeah, I love that because I know I'm going to butcher this right here. But he basically says, God, I'm not the guy to get this message out to people. Like, I'm not well spoken. I don't speak well. I don't. It's not me. Maybe my brother should do it. And you think about that. It's like, that's where, when you read the Old Testament, a lot of the things in the Old Testament, like you said, these people that, when you look at them at the end, not the beginning of their story, it's amazing. And by the way, there's a great book called Chase the Lion. And
I just had him on my show. He's been on my show twice. Mark Batterson.
Yeah, man. Yeah. What? And if you haven't read this story, is it Abadiah? Is that how you say it?
That is right. I don't know the story you're going into, but it's Abadiah.
Yeah. So Abadiah chases. It's a really brief reference. He chases the lion into a pit with a spear, and and I think it says, like, on a wintry day or a slip, and he's into this slippery pit and kills the lion. Now, lions are trying to kill us, or trying to kill him to he's trying to be lunch, right? And can you imagine chasing after a lion with a stick?
Yeah, not even close. I'd be nervous with a handgun.
Right. Yeah. And and heck, I would get nervous if it was a bear, let alone a lion. Right. Yeah. I mean, so, and so to me, that visualization is just amazing. But anytime I talk about the Old Testament, I gotta talk about, it was the last Bible lesson of many that my great friend R. Nelson Nash, right before he passed last March, he taught me. I said, Nelson, I said, I'm trying to read the Bible in a year, and I think I did it wrong. I know they say, don't just start at the beginning and read through it, but I thought that's what I'm going to do. And I am dragging in the Old Testament, Nelson. I am struggling every day doing my reading. I'm like, I don't even, like, my brain is just like phasing out. I'm not like comprehending. I'm not paying attention. And I said, any thoughts, any words of advice? He said, and he had this Southern accent, which I just loved, and I'm going to butcher again here. But he said, Jim, you have to understand the problem before you can understand the solution. And he said, the Old Testament is the problem. The New Testament is the solution. And that was a great lesson, man. That was, simple right there. And so when I think of that, you look at this force, right? And the Bible talks about it all the time. This force of God that wants good for us, that wants success, that wants prosperity. But God has to teach us. It's kind of like Francis Chan's analogy of the silversmith, is God stirs that vat of silver, and like the silversmiths would, taking the impurities, getting rid of them until he sees his image in us, right? And that's like the silversmiths would do, is they just stir it, heat it, get rid of the impurities until it's pure and they can see their reflection in it. And Francis Chan uses that as a analogy of what God does with us. So you have to get the stirring, man. The stirring happens, that failure and setbacks and challenges and stress and all that, it happens until you do one thing. And when you do one thing, which is just let go and know that this force of God is leading you where God wants you to be, and it's going to be it's going to be a lot better than what you could imagine in your own little brain. Then you just let go and say it's going there.
Yeah. I just recently, and I don't know if we'll get into it or not, but I just wrote a book that's coming out in March called Speaking God's Frequency. And it had a bunch of big name contributors write to it. But one of the chapters, which is 4, is on obedience. And I've had more feedback from that chapter. I've had a lot of people read it to give us feedback before we launch it. But the thing we don't realize is God wants us to succeed, but like you said, there's a stirring, there's a purifying that needs to happen within us to get us where God needs us to go.
Yeah.
And I think what a lot of times people don't realize is God is not, and this is how I viewed him. So I'm talking from a place of I've been there to now I'm on the other side, but I used to view God as, this guy with this big white beard and robe and a stick ready to hit me every time I did wrong if I didn't obey. And I viewed the 10 Commandments that way. And the problem with that is it was such a skewed mindset, because understanding that God is love and that he deeply loves us, what he's trying to do is bring us back into position the way he intended for us originally, which if you go back to Genesis, in the garden.
Yeah.
And when we align ourselves with what he desires for us, everything just starts to flow and it starts to come to us because we are walking in his blessing. We're walking in anointing. We're walking in favor. And it's not that he's sitting there being like, don't do this, don't do that. It's more like, hey, I'm trying to get you to go take this road, because if you do, this is the road I designed for you. And so many times, like I did, we try to fight that and be like, no, I want to do what I want to do because I think I know what's best. And what I love about what God is he's like, okay, if that's what you want, I'll let you do it. But the whole time he's constantly wooing us, trying to steer us back until finally, like me, I hit so many walls and I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I don't know what I'm doing. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. And then all of a sudden, when I started, that's what my book's about. When I started lining myself up with what he had to say, I mean, literally my life, my marriage, my family, like radically changed.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. And that's a great way. And what's the book called again?
Speaking God's Frequency.
Speaking God's Frequency. I love that. And it's coming out in March.
Yeah, it comes out March 30th. It's going to be on areyoureal.org, but we did a huge conference last June. We're giving away if you buy the book, there's a bunch of discounts and bonuses and a ton of stuff that's going to be on there as well. So, but you can get it on Amazon. You can actually get it on Amazon right now. It's kind of a pre-release, but the big bonuses and all that release is going to be on the 30th.
The 30th. All right, man. I'm going to put that in my phone to remind me. And areyoureal.org.
Yeah. And what are some of the
things I can find on areyoureal.org right now?
Man, we've had I'm just going through here, like some best-selling authors. Like you just talked about Mark Batterson's book, Chasing the Lion. I had Double Blessing. We talked about that. I've had Robbie Dawkins, the guy who wrote The Shack, the movie you saw. I've interviewed him on there. Frank Viola, Sean Bowles, Brian Head Welch from Korn, Christian Stanfield from Passion, Danny Silk from Bob Hassan, who's a big businessman. I'd highly recommend episode 142, Bob Hassan. That's right up your alley. He's a big business guy, consultant, owns a big construction company. But we've just had a lot of really good people on our show that I have just gained tons of wisdom from, just because they've been there and done it. Another one, Mac Powell from Third Day. He was really cool. Anyways, we just had a lot of cool people on there.
That's awesome, man. That's I love what you're doing. So go to that website and get all of these things that you can read and that you can listen to. They just build your confidence and eliminate fear. And the only thing that really, I guess this is what I'm saying, is the only thing that eliminates fear is action. Action cures fear. Mm-hmm. So, you have to just do it and make a decision. And one of the ways that I think is kind of cool, Jon, to make a decision is when you have a big decision in your life, if you fast forward, I think Tony Robbins calls this like the Dickens method, but you fast forward from the movie or the book, the Christmas Carol, but you fast forward what your life looks like if you don't make the decision, and then you fast forward your life if you do make the decision. So let's just say it's like losing weight or something. If you need to lose 30 pounds and you think, okay, 10 years from now, here are all the possible problems if I don't lose the 30 pounds, and here's all of the things that I gain if I do lose the 30 pounds, and you write it out and you visualize it. And I sometimes do that. In fact, I just did this in the last few weeks on possibly moving in Southwest Florida, moving our house. So, one is a bigger lot, one is closer to the beach. Which one do I visualize that I can see myself in, and I like where the movie's going.
Yeah, and I think that's part of like what I was talking about earlier and in my book too, is really, sometimes there's just stuff like it's really taking it to God and just be like, hey, what do you have for me? Like, where are we going? What do you think about this? Because a lot of times I think we jump out, and I'm just going to even take this back to business. I can't tell you how many bad business decisions, and I'm sure you can speak on this too. In real estate, we flip a lot of houses, and we've had multiple businesses where had I really sat back and got some wise counsel, and not just because I'm a driver, I'm definitely the guy who shoots first and then goes, okay, I missed, re-aim, instead of like figuring out, hey, how far is my target? What's the wind? All that. And I say that to say sometimes we need wisdom and really going, whether it's in prayer or people wiser than us, to say, hey, what do you think about this? And then making a decision and moving there that makes sense, that's best for not just myself, but for everyone.
Yeah. I agree with you 100%. When I was in Denver, and I grew up in Los Angeles, and I'm living in Denver, and I thought, God, let's go to a warmer climate. Like, help me figure out opportunities, show me the path to a warmer climate, Arizona, Texas, Florida, somewhere like that. And God said, South Dakota. I was like, no,
you're like, you ain't listening to me, Lord. I said warmer.
Yeah, you're not listening. That's not warmer. That's colder. You're going in the opposite direction of what I want, Lord. And but it was the greatest blessing that we could have ever had as a family. And the funny thing is even when we were impatient, God said, "Okay, you're gonna get we're gonna get you a part-time house in Florida, right?" And it's just been great. And I laugh because, when I was in my mid-20s, I would have never done that. I would have just fought it. I would have just, I would have suffered through it, right? No, I'm not going to listen to that. I'm not going to South Dakota. I'm not crazy. And as you get older and you listen to God more, then you go, all right, if it's South Dakota, it's South Dakota. I don't know what you have in mind, but this isn't what I was thinking, but I'm going to trust that you know a lot more than I do. So let's go.
Yep. Absolutely.
I think that's kind of one of the secrets in life is that exactly. So what, and I love all the things that you're doing with the podcast and the website and the books and so you're really combining your faith and being an entrepreneur. And what could be better than that?
Yeah, I love it. I think I've been in church for 20 years, and I think I've spoken in church. I've helped with youth, kids, men's groups. I've done a lot of different stuff. I've been around a lot of people. And there's one thing that I've seen over and over again is people miss the fact that God wants relationship with us, and it's not on Sunday morning.
Right.
And what I mean by that is like he wants to show up in our marriage. He wants to show up with us at work, in our business, the way we work with customers, employees, and all that. And I think when you allow him to show up, and I'm not talking about, and I would call myself or consider myself fairly charismatic. Okay. If you're familiar with that term. Okay. So, but what I don't mean like standing on the corner waving a Jesus banner and showing up at work and being like, hey, Jesus loves you, and being like, I'm just going to be honest, and this might offend some people, but I think it's stupid and it drives me nuts. I'm like, I don't need you shoving Jesus down my throat. Why don't you act like Jesus and be that example instead of trying to tell me? And I think so many times when we actually act out our faith, the thing is, I don't have to tell somebody that Jesus loves them. I can just love them. And through that, they're going to get to know me and know who I am and realize like, hey, maybe he's a little bit different. What is it? And I can't tell you how many of those stories I have. But when we show up to work and we do business the way God intended, I'm telling you, it's like, I'm going to steal your show. The was it Windtail?
Create tailwind. Yeah.
Create tailwind. It literally does create tailwind because it just pushes us forward.
Yeah.
Faster than we could do it ourselves because it has God's blessing on it. But so many times people think we show up to church on Sunday and that's it. And that is not the point. God wants to show up with you every day, every place, in every way.
That's awesome, man. That's great. Jon, we probably could talk about this all day, but let me start the kind of wind down, but what great words of wisdom, and I appreciate you sharing all that. What are 1, 2, or 3 books that have made a difference in your life and that you would recommend that everybody in the audience read?
Okay, so I'm a book junkie and I read a lot of books. That's how I've educated myself the last 20 years. I literally don't remember reading a book in high school or in college. So when I got out, I was reading 1 to 2 books a week, and I did for a lot of years. This last year, I decided I was no longer going to just read to read. I read to implement.
Nice.
So I read a book on purpose, and then I take the steps in the book and I literally apply them to my life, like intentionally. So that being said, a couple books that have radically changed the way I do business in life recently. One is called Profit First by Mike Michalowicz.
Great book.
He calls himself Mike Motorbike. I literally implemented his bank account, his business system. I've done it for the last year. And it has been it is the first time that I've actually started paying myself bonuses. I've had better cash flow. Like, it's been phenomenal. So highly recommend that book. The last one I just picked up that I started reading was Total Focus by Brandon Webb. He's an ex-Navy SEAL. He trained that movie that the guy was the U.S. Navy SEAL, the sniper, Chris Kyle.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, he was his trainer. He was a SEAL himself, but he's grown a company from nothing, literally zero, to over $100 million. But he talks about it just to me was really practical wisdom on how to run business, how to treat people, how to do stuff. So I've listened to it twice now on Audible. And then for a faith-based book, I highly recommend Destined to Win. You talk about changing your mindset the way God intended and how he views us. Chris Valentin wrote a book called Destined to Win. I've literally read it once, and I think I've listened to it 3 times. And,
nice.
So those are books that have really been, in the last year, just been game changers for me.
Those are great. Thank you for sharing. I haven't heard of the last 2, so I'm on my Audible account once we get off the phone here. So
yeah, they're good. I mean, I bought the books too. I don't just listen to them. I buy them, then I go back and earmark them.
Yeah, you know what I like to do is I like to, while I'm reading or while I'm riding my bike down here, I like to listen. I put my AirPods on transparency mode so I can hear cars come up behind me. But and it seems to be a good way to listen to books. But any last words of wisdom or final thoughts, Jon?
Yeah, man. I mean, I just want to tell people, I know your show's about business and stuff and just moving forward. And I just want to tell people, like, don't be scared. Just go for it. Be okay with failure. Know that you're going to fail. Have a good plan. As far as like, hey, how can I possibly get out of this? Obviously get some wisdom, get some help from people. And in my opinion, you definitely need to pray about it, but don't, what's the saying? This is analysis is paralysis.
Yeah.
And I have the opposite. So I'm shoot, then aim, fire, aim, shoot.
Yeah.
And so I have as I've gotten older, I've gotten out of that. But I say that to say, man, if you got dreams and you got hope, go for it. God put it inside of you. Go for it. Take some action. And it's going to lead into something. And at the end, you're going to be a better person. You're going to have more wisdom, more understanding, but just don't be fearful, because fear, as I like to say, is like a rocking chair. You sit in it and you just rock back and forth and you never get anywhere. I
love that. That's a great way. And if you want to learn more, go to areyoureal.org and earmark your calendar. I'm not sure exactly when this podcast is going to come out, but March 30th, it'll be on there to get all your bonus materials. And if you're a quick start and you can't wait, then go to Amazon and start reading reading Jon's new book right now. And if you want to learn more just about taking control of your finances and growing your wealth in a unconventional way, then go to createtailwind.com. Jon, thank you so much for being a guest, and you got me thinking. So I'm sure the whole audience is thinking about ways that we can, with our faith, create business opportunities that are above and beyond anything we can imagine. Yeah. And man, if any of you guys have stories, I love people's stories because I can use them in my books and I can share them on my sermon. So we'll have you back on, Jim, or anybody else. If you got one, man, send me an email, because I would love to hear your story about how something happened, whether through my book or just even your podcast. I want to hear it. So. Awesome. All right, guys, till next time. Thank you, Jon. I'm your host, Jim Oliver. We'll see you next time. That's all for this episode of Are You Real? Finding the Authentic You. Be sure to go to areyoureal.org for your free questionnaire to identify your gifts and talents and how you can use them to help people become leaders and catapult them into their destiny to help others become the leaders of tomorrow. We appreciate you spending your time with us and look forward to helping you reach out and revolutionize next time on Are You Real? Finding the Authentic You.